Okay, so hi everyone. I am extremely happy to have Joanna with me today. She is the creator of Copy Hackers and Story, the original conversion copywriter. She is one of the most talented people I know, and I myself have learned a lot from her. So I'm really excited to get a lot of ideas about writing persuasive copy. So hi,
Hey,
Joanna.
hello. Thank you for chatting with me today about this. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
I think everyone in the course is kind of in the middle of the process right now. So it's going to be just the right time to kind of cue into this video and start learning more about it and just see how people can learn to just write better copy for their campaigns.
Yes, it's very easy. It's the easiest thing.
I'm sure it is. Cool. So why don't we just dive straight into the final lesson and so maybe start with the easiest question of why is persuasive copy important? I mean, how is it different from other copy?
So, what you describe as persuasive copy, we describe as conversion copy. Same thing that we're talking about, right? We're trying to get people to the yes. So get them to say, yes, that's our goal. That's our primary objective. That's what we believe when you're writing copy. Every word on the page has to work towards that point of getting the yes. So no word should be on your page that isn't doing its job to move people closer to yes. Now, there's copy doesn't live on its own, right? It's not like sitting there in a silo or in isolation. It's part of your design. It's part of everything that's going on your page, plus all the stuff that's going on in your visitors' heads. Like there's so much in this ecosystem, right? And so copy is doing its best when it's your online salesperson. So it's there, just like if you think of offline, in the offline world, if you go into a store, everything about the brand makes you feel a certain way that you actually go in the store and feel good about being there. Or if you don't feel good about it, that's all part of that. But let's go best case scenario. You walk into a store, you feel good about it. There are, beautiful displays, and you're starting to get emotionally oh, that looks wonderful. And you can imagine yourself something, right? Like if it's a clothing store or something, you imagine yourself holding the luxury bag, and then the salesperson comes along, and that's copy. That's where copy walks in and sees you noticing something and tries to engage and get you to say yes to whatever that next step might be. Like, should I take this to the case for you, right? That's like getting that yes is something that you have to really work up to, and then moving them toward the point of converting. So all of the pieces work together, but we believe that persuasive or conversion copy is there to actually do the work of getting that yes, or another way to put it is copy is your online salesperson.
Yeah, I love that take on it, because a lot of, most times within this course, we're constantly talking about nothing works as a silo. The images don't work as a silo. The copy doesn't work as a silo. The fonts, the whole strategy, it just works all together. So it's so important to be able to kind of fit everything together. And that's why one of the most important things I wanted to ask you today is just about how does it fit in with the design? Because everyone's always talking, and it's part of this course too, about, design, colors, and images are the most powerful thing. That's what grabs your attention first. So how does it fit in with the copy? Where does the copy come in? Is it something, do you feel like there's a higher hierarchy, or is this something that you need to put more attention to, or where does it kind of fit in your mind?
So we come from a perspective of copy leading design. Now, that doesn't mean that you only think about copy and then you tack on design over it. Everybody likes to break things up and make it feel like it's modular, when in fact, like as you just said, it all works together. But when we're talking about copy first, we're saying if copy is supposed to get in your visitor's mind and in their heart, then obviously all of that initial research is really what comes first. Understanding what's going to move them, starting to come up with hypotheses around like the emotions, what they're feeling now, what they're aspiring toward. So you do, and then what the actual language is that's going on, that they're like using when they're thinking of their pain, when they're thinking of solutions, when they're looking toward their better future, the thing that you're trying to create for them with your solution. So you have all that research that goes in. We believe that if you're creating a page or an email or whatever it might be that's trying to help your visitors see their better version of themselves in your product, then then real awesome. Then if that's your goal, then naturally the user is the first thing. The prospect is the first concrete, right? That where they can actually read the words and see themselves in the words they're reading, or in bad cases, not see themselves in it. And so we start with the research that leads to the message, that leads to the copy that we lay out on the page, and then we work with the whole team to say, like, here's where we're at, right? So this is what we believe the messaging hierarchy should be for this particular page based on what we know about our visitor to it. How can we pull this together even better to get it to be, to really drive home what we need people to feel? So that might mean, oh, well, this is great, but we know actually we've learned more about how our people visiting this page engage really well with video. So let's maybe test turning this section that you have, which has a lot of great messaging in it. What if we supported it with video or replaced it with video? Things like that, right? This image could actually help support that copy better. And so that's where the design starts to come together. But we start first with the words.
Yeah, I think what I really like about this is, and I spoke about this earlier today, is that many times designers get briefs that just have like lorem ipsum text, or title goes here, or call to action goes here. And I've seen amazing. I remember you actually showing an example of this at one of the conferences that we both spoke at, maybe this last time. But this, I think that other than like kind of influencing your customer before you even got into that, you're just like placing placeholders within your brief. You're not really giving the designer the option and the possibility to create something even better. Yeah. Because the people and marketers who send out briefs with different elements and tactics don't really have a strategy. If you have a strategy, you should be able to put together a brief that has both the design, the colors, and the copy all together, because they're all supporting one another. But if you're kind of separating it, then you're basically putting a foot to yourself. Like, you're just preventing yourself from creating something even better.
Way, because they think there are these better practices. They call them best practices out there that all you do is you put the button above the fold and make sure you do that. You've got to do that. People need to click above the fold. So you get, like, as we've all seen this, right? You get boardrooms filled with people who think they can break it all up into these easy one-size-fits-all kind of solutions. And why are we making this so difficult for them, right? When we're like, no, doing wrong. You're thinking of everything as like these little compartments, and you think that the way you come up with a high converting page is you say, here, designer, come up with the page. And you walk away, and we're all like, that poor designer. Didn't sign up for this, right? Had to like work on their own, and so they're like, oh. And you see this, the more designers have been at it for a while, they get beat down. They're tired of saying no to this. Like, that's not how it works, guys. That's not how it works, guys. You can't be the guy who keeps saying that in the boardroom. So you just say, okay, fine, I'll go do it, and then you create a page with lorem ipsum there, and you're kind of soulless about the whole thing. But that's like the world that marketing has created for all of us, which is why courses like yours are so important, because we have to like stop thinking of things that way. And it does, like, yeah, I mentioned it at MozCon, but this takes real buy-in from the organization to think of things differently, because what you've been doing hasn't been working. And they fail to recognize that, largely because the C-level is so far removed from the day-to-day that they think it's just an easy answer, when we know it's not.
It's not. I think at the end of the day, I think it really does drill down to the fact that people view conversion optimization as a tactic to increase a KPI, to I just want to get more opt-ins, I just want to get more sales, and not viewed as what it could be, which is, I've always seen A/B testing and conversion optimization as the biggest and most amazing research tool that we have, because it's such an amazing way to learn so much about your customers. And you can translate that knowledge into an entire new product and new customer journeys, and into everything, like every campaign that you run, from the sales team to the customer success. So it's a shift in kind of the way people think, and that's why I love talking to you about conversion copy or persuasive copy, because
that too, for me.
It's really important, and I think that this is, I mean, basically what I'd love to get from you, maybe before we even dive into, okay, what's the framework, what's the steps to doing it, are there any like basic rules that people should follow? Something that before you even get started,
is that your best messages aren't hiding in your head. They're not, when you look in the mirror, they're not there. Like, no, it's not. That we say again and again, that it's in the research, that if you can just shut up and listen to your customers and prospects, people who have abandoned you. All of these people know a million times more than you do about what belongs on your page. Don't ask them what belongs on your page, but listen to them talk about the journey they've been through, those struggling moments where they expected your solution would solve it for them. And if it did or it didn't, and what the outcome was or wasn't there. But it's in that listening, right? And it doesn't have to be that hard. So the first thing is, the best messages aren't hiding in your head. Come and get it. And that is when people leave reviews for products like yours or services like yours. You can see all of that online. You don't have to go do an interview. You should still do interviews, but if you're in a big kind of a big thing, right? But like triangulating the data, or trying to say like, okay, well, we learned this in an interview. Like if you do this 7 interviews, let's say, and one person brought up something really interesting. You didn't hear anybody else necessarily say it, but it still is interesting. So should you go look elsewhere to see if others have said something similar? Yes, you probably should, just to triangulate, right? Make sure that you're not just making bold assumptions that are based on you liking the sound of something, which is just as bad as you liking the sound of your own voice, right? So go out and listen in spaces like Amazon reviews, which are plentiful for basically every product on the planet. And if you're like, well, I have a service, well, but your service is tied to something that a product thinks it's solving too, right? So if you're somebody who does bicycle repairs, you can look at reviews for books on do-it-yourself bicycle repair for actual bicycles. See what people are thinking when they're buying the bike. Buying the repair is buying the better bike, right? So go see what people care about for the bike. But you can go out and find these messages and then use them with other things that you've been doing. But that's like the big rule for us. Find your message.
I love that idea of, so a big part of this course, and most people who are watching this video should be past it by now, but is basically, filling in a questionnaire, talking to your customers. We do questionnaires and we do surveys, seem interesting, and then going to Amazon or going to your competitors and just looking at people's reviews and testimonials and seeing what others are saying, if they're true.
There's that.
Well,
Yeah.
So Amazon's really good for that, for sure. And just like understanding, what is the common ground. And I think this is another thing that I learned from you, which I even mentioned in this course, is listening to your customers, because you can use their words, right?
Yes.
That is,
use their words. So that's the second thing that is okay. So great, you find your message, and then so you come up with these words. And what we do is when we go through Amazon, we use like a clipper to go through the reviews, like a web clipper, you know, where you highlight, you save it somewhere. So we go through and we find this interesting stuff, we tag it, and then we go and we organize it. But what you end up with is we don't like to summarize the messages when we're going through them, right? We like to say like, okay, let's keep the data raw, take their actual words that they were using in the review, and maybe have a separate section of like the document you end up putting together where you're summarizing what they said. But there's so much goodness in the actual words that they use. Like we've done tests, which I've talked about at conferences. I'll bring them up now anyway because they're good examples. But it's like when we found this winning headline, if you think you need research, you do. We found that line in an Amazon book review on, so did I say, if you think you need rehab, did I say research?
You said research.
I'm so, if you think you need rehab, you do, was the line we found in a review for a book on dealing with alcoholics, I think, because we reviewed 6 different books and we just put them all together. But if you think you need rehab, you do. We were like, okay, that's interesting. We didn't try to summarize it. I mean, it's a pretty good summary anyway, because you summarize by saying, if you think you need rehab, you do. But we took that exact language and we put it on the page exactly as it was. Now, you don't always find well-formed sentences like that. You find a sticky idea said in a sticky way, but it's not going to work necessarily perfectly on the page like that. So we recommend that you take your research and you take copywriting formulas and you put them together. So you have that great voice of customer data that you're collecting in its raw form, and then you shove it into a formula that's been proven potentially more persuasive because there are a lot of formulas and frameworks that have been established over the course of copywriting. It's got a long history. In advertising, it's got one of the longest histories. And so if you can take things that have worked in the 1920s, that worked in the 1950s, that worked in the 1980s, that work today, the same formula that works over time, and then plug in your voice of customer data into that, you'll have stronger copy than if you just use the voice of customer data as it was.
That's amazing. I love this whole idea of just combining everything together and finding the right words. By your research and by your customers.
Yeah.
So I guess the natural step to us next is, okay, so we're getting started. We have no clue what we're doing today. What are like the first steps? So you mentioned this amazing idea of just like clipping things from Amazon. So and doing research, so talking to your customers and reviewing competitors and Amazon and start getting some bite-sized information from all sorts of places. What would you say is the process to go through if I'm a beginner and I'm just getting started?
So for us, like for conversion copywriting, it's similar to most other things. It's like a 3-step process, right? So the middle step is, it's always a 3-step process, but the middle step is like the step where we really come to life, right? So first step is research and discovery. It's going to be the biggest step every time, even when you.
Most people kind of hate and skip. That's like the biggest thing, right? Most people just skip the first part of the research and they're like, I know enough, and I'm just gonna translate that into the second step, right? But that's what makes the people who are, everyone who's watching the video right now makes them so much better because you've already committed to doing that research.
Exactly.
What do you guys do during the research? Like, what are the kind of pillars of that?
The big ones, so we're doing research purely to find the message. So we're not in it to learn necessarily about how old your average customer is. I can't use that to write copy. I really can't. Like, unless they're all 75 plus and they don't understand some reference that we make. But that's right. Like, the job's to be done. Right. The idea is not that people buy something because they're 35 and a single mother working 2 jobs. It can be helpful to know that, but we don't do research to get there. What we do is we assess the page that we want to optimize. And there's a different process to all the different things, but this is generally it. So there's usually something we're working with. We don't work with any clients that are starting from scratch necessarily. And even if they are, they're in a space usually, always, with competitors. So we'll go and we'll see what's at play. So what is your audience, your target market? What are they seeing today when they're looking for solutions like yours? Do that initial assessment, come up with the questions based on, we've all got 1,000 frameworks that we're using behind the scenes, right? But what are the bigger, just really trying to get to the bottom of what's being told to them, what the bare minimum is that we need to say, what we might want to reconsider, just all of that initial, the deeper research, which is looking for voice of customer data, right? So if you're optimizing a landing page in particular, you might put a pop-up poll on the page if you want to answer a certain question. The questions we find most useful to answer are around this framework that we have with the rule of one. We can talk about that maybe at some point, but one of the parts of that is identifying who your one reader is. And we call them a reader for a reason, because people are capable of reading. They're literate. If you don't bore the crap out of them, they are likely to read your sub. So we call them a reader, and we try to write copy that will live up to that will work for that kind of approach. So they can read, let's give them something to read. So there's that. So when we're asking questions, we're really trying to understand who that reader is. So if they're coming to a page and we don't know what stage of awareness they're in, can we ask them questions? So that's for on-page polls, like Hotjar and Qualaroo. Then there's, of course, bigger engagements where we're not just working on a single page or even a single email or something like that, but rather let's redo an entire campaign or a funnel or what some people just call a whole website. Yeah. And in that case, we're doing surveys. We're reviewing past survey data that you might have, if it's at all relevant anymore, like if it was done in the last year, let's say. We're doing customer interviews for sure. And we've been really lucky to be able to work with the guys at the Rewired Group, where they do a lot of jobs to be done as the methodology. And following the way they do interviews, and there's lots of brilliant ways to do interviews, of course, but this for us has led us to have about 7 people that we want to interview, and go really deep on what they were going through when they considered our product, or even kind of just backing up beyond that. But the point being that we go through and do these interviews. And I've found that if you don't do any other research, if you just do the interviews, if you do a good interview, you always come up with killer copy ideas, messages you never thought of. You've got these great insights into what people are really thinking when they're considering your solution, not just what you think they're thinking, kind of, because they ticked a box in a survey, but rather heard their whole story. Something that sounded like maybe that might be something that we could possibly think about. So yes, we do all of those, and then I like to do that kind of research, synthesize where we're at, see where the gaps are in what we've done, like what questions are still unanswered for us. And then we use user testing actually at that point to say okay, so here's some of the things that we don't know yet. We can ask now specific questions on usertesting.com and get those users to walk us through what they're thinking in relation to those questions. So that's basically how our research works. But again, the whole point for us is to find the best messages, the messages that are more likely to convert than what might be going on the page right now. So others would do other types of research, but that's what we're looking for.
Right. And then I guess the next step is just combining all of that content, which is just kind of crafting the message itself.
Yeah, then we're taking it and saying, okay, so we've learned that maybe we were wrong about this, but we might have been right about this. We've learned things like we were optimizing a homepage for a group that sold app design templates. And when we went through usertesting.com, we got people developers and designers to look at the homepage and basically walk through what they were thinking. One of the things that revealed was that the message they were leading with on the page was around how much money you'll save with templates versus trying to hire a designer to do your app design. So we found with this that in leading with this message that you can save all this money by buying a $99 template versus hiring $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 designer for your app design, we hadn't written that original copy. We were just listening at this point. And what people told us, or what we saw when they were reviewing this, they were like, let's see, let me do the math on this, because I'm pretty sure I could work out Photoshop myself. And we were like, oh, okay, so that's like a huge thing. So what we did instead was subordinated that message. We didn't make it the lead one. We didn't want to like introduce skepticism immediately. We took that down, and then we focused a section on the calculations, on really saying like, yes, we could all learn Photoshop, but shouldn't you be doing other things for your business than like trying to figure out how to do this in Photoshop? Here's how much time it takes. And then we actually you actually spent X amount of dollars on it. And we saw great results. And that was one part of the page. We redid the whole page, but that was helping us figure out the messaging hierarchy, and then those objections or anxieties that we had to really work to unpack and pull apart and make people feel good, when before the idea was, who doesn't, of course everybody will believe that you'll save time or you'll save money with this. $99, and the designer is clearly more expensive. But having those user tests really helped us get to the point of having a clearer messaging hierarchy and breaking through those objections. So that's what we do next, is synthesize to get to that place of a hierarchy. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess what I'd be even more interested in is then right now we've discussed kind of landing pages and then also like specific pages. But do you think there's a difference when you're writing email marketing campaigns, if we're talking about specific ads? Do you change anything within your process, or is it just more about just shortening the text, or is it context, obviously?
It depends. So our 3 phases are research and discovery, writing and wireframing, and then experimentation or validation. Really, did we do right or didn't we? And what can we do next to take that away? And do a takeaway there. Then we're not going to go through that whole process every single time we write anything, but we will still, we'll have the basic process in place. It's just, and this is how I draw it out in my course. I like draw it. So for research, for like the first time we work with somebody, we will do a big circle of research and discovery, and then a littler circle of writing and wireframing, and then like a kind of same size as that for the experimentation and A/B testing. Then the next one that we do with that same client, the research circle gets smaller, and we might find that we're spending more time on the writing side of it because we've learned some things from the past test. And then that A/B test or the experimentation might be even smaller. If we're just going to do an A/B test instead of doing like 5-second test as like a pre thing before you do the full A/B test, and other kinds of things that you can validate without actually launching a test. So it depends, right? So depending on what you're doing, you might always have you might have each of those elements in your process. Weebs absolutely do, but one of them might get really little, right? Like your research might be like really tiny because you learned some things from the last time you went through this, and now you're not going to do as much research. You might say like, okay, well, we've learned this, so let's now go and see if we can find sticky messaging in any of the research we've already done, and then we'll put it on the page. So research gets really little, writing gets bigger relative to that little research, and so on and so forth. So the same process stays generally in place, but some parts of it are so small as to appear not even quite there. It continues to be the same process that you follow. I think, and everybody we talk to outside of copywriting too, when you're in conversion rate optimization, you follow the same process every time.
And it's all about context. I mean, here you're writing for a landing page and here you're writing for an email campaign, for example. So you have the research and now you have to understand what is the goal, that one goal for your email campaign, and how do you get them to that landing page, and how do you fit in within the context. So it's all a customer journey, and you're just thinking about those micro moments that people move from one step to another.
Completely, totally, absolutely, right? And yeah, then along that, how does your process adjust, and does it even? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are there like major, huge mistakes that you see people make time and time again that people should avoid? Like alarm sounds, do not do this. Anything come to mind?
No, I mean, it's mostly just like the things that you do if you don't follow the stuff we've just been talking about. Like you say, okay, it's time for us to write this landing page. So, or it's time for us to write our homepage. What should we say? And you're like, no, that's evil. You just did it wrong. So no, don't do that. Don't say that. That's the part where you go and you listen, and then you pull in your messages and combine them with formulas. So the other one, another big one is, I think it's something that comes with, it's a bit of a rookie mistake, which is putting something that sounds good on the page and expecting that it will convert because it sounded good, even if it's voice. Yeah, right. So you're like, oh, neat, sticky page, doesn't do anything. It might not have been a bad message. It might have been the ultimate winning message, but your how was wrong. And that's kind of like what comes with not really respecting that copywriting isn't like writing an essay in school. It's not going to follow the same rules of a lot of the stuff you've written before, but you try to apply those old rules to something that's there to get a yes. Your papers that you learn to write with your like inverted pyramid in like grade 10 English, those aren't going to really do, and like throw all that crap out. Forget all of that and start again. Respecting that copywriting is this. For advertising, it butts up with like the beginning of advertising, like they're side by side, right? They're the same thing, and then they've grown apart a bit, but still always stayed together and necessary. Copywriting has been necessary the entire time, so it's got this history baked in. It's not anything new. The rules aren't newer. The rules are older, and although they might be modifiable for online spaces that are newer, the same old rules do apply, like following the rule of one, and using formulas and frameworks that have been tested. So a big problem that I see is when you go to put your messages on the page, even if you found them in Voice of Customer data and you feel good about your messaging hierarchy, does that hierarchy align with some of the better frameworks we have for laying out a page, like problem, agitation, solution, or like attention, interest, desire, action, or any of the like 60 other frameworks that can help you lay that page out? If you don't apply those, you're doing yourself and your visitors, of course, a huge disservice. So that's a big one. A third one, I will say, because I can't help it, is trying to get everything down to its shortest, smallest possible point. The objective is not to get as few words as possible on the page. It's not going to work. In most cases, it's not going to work as well as actually taking the time to engage your reader, have them pay attention and get inside their head by using more words, still good words, not useless words, the right words to get them, to get their imaginations engaged and to get them really thinking of like their future self being happier and better, and the exact like specific ways it will get better, not just, oh, you'll have a great life as something people want, but like, what does that like look like, right? Like save time. Okay, but what does save time like look like for me in my life? And that's knowing more about me, which takes, of course, research.
Right. I think a lot of people do this, and this is something that we discuss so much throughout the course. People do this because we're told that people don't read. We don't have time, there's only 3 seconds. There's only which is, generally speaking, that's right. So you don't want to lead with, about yourself and about your features, about your pricing. You want to, but the idea is not to write less, it's to say the right things. Because if you say the right things at the right time, people will read on and read all of your content. They will go on and read every single bullet. But first, you have to make it about the customer. You have to put that, value, what's in it for me. Step one, that is the most important thing. Capture them with those few seconds, and then they'll continue reading. The amount of people that are just like, use one word on your call to action, have 2 words in your title. Don't, like, everything is kind of minimized into these bite-sized things that people can't understand. They don't get.
No.
And I love that. I love that you said that, because it really resonates with everything that we talk about. But it's not about the amount that you're writing; it's what you're writing.
Yeah, and that even goes back to like the idea that you've got when you're talking about leading with them, like, and you should hopefully be talking about them all the time, but at minimum, lead with them. You have to. It's this, and I think I spoke about this at one of the conferences we were at together recently. Was our sweat block example for the sweatblock.com homepage. Where previously a high converting version of their homepage led with sweat block in the top, right? It was a picture of the product, the ultimate benefit of the product, like sweat less, control embarrassment, or something like that. And then a buy now call to action. And so people tell themselves, marketers tell themselves, oh, well, it's got a benefit. So I'm talking about them, right? Like, so my visitor, she's seeing herself on the page. When you should be pushing that probably further, because you're leading with you. Your product is right there. It's center in the hero with a buy now button. You're talking about yourself. You just want her to believe you're talking about her. So when we went in and we tested a different version where we basically bumped all that stuff down and left a section where we could talk about her problem and agitate her problem, that led to about 50% increase in paid conversions for us on a page that was already performing well anyway. So there's so much you can do if you lead with your customer. But I'm so glad you're talking about it, because it's like such an important thing that people need to hear like 300 times before they actually do it.
Yeah, one of the things that I am constantly repeating is that when people want to buy, they know where to go. They know you want their money. Right? Like, they know you want them to come back.
Yes.
You need to kind of go like 2 or 3 stages back when you've got a challenge and your customer's coming to the website to answer a question. Like, what is the first thing that a person asks when they're faced with a challenge? Your house got broken into. What is the first thing you search for?
Yeah.
These are the kind of things that people are looking for. So they're not looking for the best price or whatever. When they do want to convert, they know how to do that. They'll be fine.
Yes.
But address their actual problem and go back to the initial search, their problem, answer that, so that you're catering to their challenges, telling them how you solve their problem, and then
and moving them into the actual like purchasing funnel. I know. It's so this is like a discussion about stages of awareness largely, but it's also like when I worked at Intuit, Lance worked there too, and Intuit in the US and in Canada, they make tax software. Other countries don't have the same tax stuff where you like do your own taxes. I don't know. Do you guys do your own taxes?
No.
Yeah. So here. And employers do them, people in, I don't know, there's rules all over the place, but at least in America and in Canada, you do your own. And so Intuit makes something called TurboTax, which is tax software to help you do your taxes. So there's tax season, and it ends April 15th in the US. You have to turn in your completed taxes or you'll face penalties, which means April 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, TurboTax.com is it's flooded. Like you can't do anything wrong during that period, right? Like everybody will find the button to click, right? That is the most high intent, most aware visitor you could possibly imagine. And we called this, just amongst ourselves, we called it the hot coal effect, right? Like you could actually put hot coals there and say, run over those in order to get to our button and be like, all right, I got my then I'll run over these hot coals. Like you can do anything. when people have really high intent or when they're really ready to buy. It's nice to make it easy for them to buy. So it's nice to have an easy to access call to action for them, or a little button like the buy now button that might appear in the header sometimes for those really like, I'm ready, got to get it now kind of people. But you don't have to optimize your site for those people, like you were just saying, right? You don't have to optimize it for them. You optimize it for the people who are in a different stage and now need to be brought on board with you as their solution. But it's easier and more fun to build a site for people who are high intent, because you can get into things like urgency, scarcity, all the stuff that Robert Cialdini talks about that marketers get really jazzed about, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, those things work better for a high aware, high intent visitor. And we're trying to get the rest of them, not just the 2% to convert, but the other guys too.
You know, I definitely think it's like a salesperson at the end of the day. There are tactics. There's millions of blogs out there that will tell you how to, you know, the 3 most important things you can do to convert right now. And you know what? Most of them actually work. But the question is, right, do they become your customers afterwards? Because you can get their money right now, or you can convert them right now. But everyone knows that it's 5 times more cost effective to retain a customer than to get a new one. So you have their money, but do you have the customer? Do you have someone who's going to continue coming back, that you've built a relationship with, that feels comfortable with you and safe with you? And at the end of the day, that's the purpose of your business, not to just get one-off people that you keep having to attract new customers, but to actually have an ongoing relationship with customers. And that might take time, but it's worth investing in.
Yeah, I love that line. You have their money, but do you have the customer? I think that's so true. It's like mic drop kind of. Now we leave the room.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, no, it's true. And you've come all full circle. We're like wrapping up on it as your online salesperson, really acquiring a customer, which it's a important distinction, I think, to make, because, right? And you talked about this in your post on thank you pages that you did on Copy Hacker, where that's really the beginning of the customer. The thank you pages at the end. This is just getting started now, right? Money, but now let's build the relationship. So very interesting, very cool stuff.
Yeah.
What?
Wow. Yeah. Well, I loved talking to you so much. There are so many resources I want to share with everyone here. So what I'm going to do is in the resources section of the course, I'm just going to post in all sorts of templates. I actually have all sorts of templates that I've saved from your like posts and stuff. So I use like the headline templates that you've shared and stuff. And if you have any frameworks and stuff that you want to share with us, then I'll just go ahead and add them to this lesson.
Cool.
Yeah. And
all right.
Thank you so much. It was so amazing talking to you.
Thank you, and good luck to everybody in your course. It'll be amazing.